Look at that right there. That's the new sweatshirt I'm wearing. Just wanted to show you folks as I welcome you back to the Raised Hunting Podcast. If you didn't catch it just a second ago, that's the new sweatshirt that we got. So you need to check those out. No, today we're going to be, this one has been requested a bunch, so we're finally there. And that is we're going to talk about equipment. Is there anyone that I need to thank for reviews or I feel like there was so many.
Several more reviews, but I don't know if I think they've just left stars. I don't know that they've wrote in anything.
Well, and the thing is, I can't name off all the people that actually asked for this podcast because there's too many of you. So I apologize. Plus, we had someone that said they almost wrecked their car when they heard their name on the podcast. So
how long are you gonna milk that one for?
She's gonna be angry if she hears you dissing her. All right. So anyhow. Welcome to the Raised Hunting Podcast, and I have the two special guests back again today, and here we go. So it's raining outside. It's kind of nasty. These guys picked up a couple sheds yesterday. We talked about sheds the other day, but we ain't to the prime time of sheds. But we are prime time of people need to be shooting their bows.
I have a new shed technique for people.
Oh, Lordy.
Complain.
Complain what?
Yep, complain.
How's
Ethan's
that?
like, I don't want to go look for an antler. I don't want, we got stuff to go do.
Correction, I didn't want to go to your spot.
Oh,
and it still
okay.
didn't benefit anything.
And then he gets to find the biggest antler of the day.
It makes you mad because I don't care that much about
At least you guys got to go. I didn't even get to go. So
if you want to find more antlers, just complain a little more.
I didn't complain at all,
I've seen it be consistent.
But I did try the new tactic
Okay.
of walking fast. So if anybody...
how'd that treat you?
Well, I found an antler.
Right? Did you?
Pretty good antler.
But he found two others
To
you
be
missed.
honest with you, the only reason I found that antler is because I was standing next to him. We were walking next to each other, and I knew that if I wasn't looking ahead of him, that he was going to find it first. So it was just a matter of I saw it first because I was looking probably further than what he was.
He did see it from a long ways away. I also didn't have optics.
All right.
I
Well,
knew it was
equipment.
before.
Sheds are not part of this. We are talking about bows. And we're going to talk about bows and the accessories on those bows and give people a little bit of our opinions because we definitely differ in some of this. I don't know where you want to start. I don't know if you want to start at the cam or if you want to start on the sight or the release.
There's only a few different things to be discussed as far as, like, I guess you could do rests. You can't break it down too much. I mean, there's sights, there's rests, there's stabilizers, there's release mechanisms.
Releases is the one we get the most questions about. And
I
I
want
think
to do that one first.
We can. I think that it can be there's quite a few variables in my opinion.
So this one would be releases. Whether you're
right,
using and just a premise for everybody, we are going to do this in a format of hunting, correct? Like what we would be using it for, not anything else, right?
Sure.
So in a hunting perspective, using index releases, hinge releases, back tension, true tension, thumb releases, tons and tons and tons and tons of different releases.
Well, I'm going to have to lean on you guys on a couple of them because I've only shot 2 or 3 of them. So
yeah, you've been an index release guy for all time, probably.
And real fingers.
Yeah.
You guys have never shot real fingers with a compound bow. I've done that and killed deer, killed an elk. One of my first elk was with fingers. Yeah,
in your Montana bull, you were still shooting fingers?
Yeah, I went back to him. Jamie Jackson convinced me that I had too much stuff on my bow and there's too many things that could go wrong. So I went back to fingers for a little while.
What were you
sucked.
3 under? Or?
3 under. That's where I learned that I hated above because every time you pull on it, it would want to come off the rest.
What bow was that at that time?
It might have been a bear.
It wanted to come off the rest?
That's because you're pinching the arrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you were torquing it probably.
Oh, like
crap
a mother.
Out of it.
Yeah.
Thank God they were only 70% let off or whatever.
Yep.
What's
if that?
So anyhow, there you go. Do not do that. So if there's number one. Okay, if you're a finger release shooter and you're shooting a compound bow, stop it.
No,
okay,
if you're using your fingers, you mean?
What?
If you're just using fingers?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You said finger release. That could be.
Well, I meant if you're using real fingers.
When did D-loops come around?
I don't know what year, but they've probably been around for.
So
what was before was that you just clamped you clamped 2 nocks, and then you went in between the nocks. Actually, you put 3.
So you knew where to put the release.
Well, first you would put a knock and then a knock and then a knock, and then you knocked between there. knocking point. You know what I'm talking about? The little
Yeah.
chrome piece. Clamp that on there. First thing that happened was it was just you had a knocking point. You put your knock on there, and then you clamp the release right to the string underneath it.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the next thing was people realized, oh, that's putting a lot of tension on that arrow.
And it's not in line with the arrow.
Yeah, it's in line with the arrow, but it was just
it's above or below it.
it's below it.
Exactly. It's not
So-
in line with the arrow.
What do you mean it's not in line with the arrow? It
He's
is.
saying it's
A
not
deer
behind
loop
you.
is
Okay,
directly
it's
behind the
underneath the arrow. Yes.
I couldn't
okay.
imagine trying to tune that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying is depending on how much torque, you
A lot
know,
of compensation.
the release was hooked on the string, which was against the knock,
Yeah.
and
For
so
stiff
then you
aluminum
could pinch
arrows.
it. You know,
Yeah.
you guys can't make fun of what
I'm not making fun, it's just
all
come
of
a long
the
ways.
all of this stuff was trial and error to get us to the point where you guys just step in and go check this out.
Yeah.
You know, I got pins that show you how far away to shoot something.
Yeah.
You know, that are a built-in rangefinder.
We still need those.
No, we don't need those ever again.
Yeah, if you don't
That
want
was-
to buy, if you don't want to buy a rangefinder.
No. Okay, so anyhow, so we're talking about releases, and I think probably we should start with the most common. And I think for sure the most common is a index finger release.
Absolutely.
It's the simplest one.
And so there you go. The old people out there that are shooting one, continue to shoot what you're shooting because I still think that it is the best one to have in the woods. Now, I will say that when we looked at, whose was it that we looked at? Stan. At ATA, and not a back tension release, but
It was a thumb release.
it was a thumb release. And I thought that possibly there was a little more power in the way that your hand holds it and could draw it back.
Well,
I don't know that yet. I haven't tried that. Who did? Did you do it and said you didn't notice it? Someone said they
Warren said that Pete said that it is. A lot of people say they feel like they have more power with that specific release. But I think if you're going to look at anything besides, any release you're looking at, quality makes a huge difference. Because I know right now that release, I've pulled that release I haven't got to shoot on an actual bow because they just released it, but it felt just naturally a lot better in my hand compared to the thumb release I have right now. Is terrible. Like that whole just using that at ATA and trying, I was like, sweet, maybe I'll try my thumb release again that I have, and it's terrible. And that would completely turn me off from thumb releases if I didn't have a quality
Are
one.
we going to tell people who's
It's a True Fire. It's
okay,
but it's
We're-
True Fire
we're-
Thor, actually. I remember now.
Which was probably one of their cheaper ones.
Yeah, well, it was like $200 because it was new when I got it, and it was not good. But
As
so,
far as
like
I
Warren has
say
one of their
it
other.
was not good. What part of it wasn't good?
There's tons and tons of play in it. Like no matter how, like you can adjust the tension, you can adjust the travel and everything on it, which is fine. But no matter what you do, you could go down to like the most minimal amount of travel, and you can still feel how much play is in it. As opposed to like if you grab your True Fire, do you know which one yours is?
The Synapse.
That one, like if I grab that, and you can change it, and you can feel that it's pretty tough, no matter what. Like if you even like when I make it as hard as it is possible to squeeze and the least amount of travel, it still has travel and it still plays around. You can feel it move around, and that one is extremely solid. You can feel like if there's more travel, but it's solid all the way through and it's consistent all the way through.
Yeah.
And so my point with that is if you're going to look in something like that, I did make the mistake of buying the $150, $200 one, or the cheaper end of them. They can get really expensive, and it was not worth it at all. As opposed to like something like that, I would shoot that a heck of a lot more consistently.
So what would you guys say is the number one that you should be shooting for hunting?
than the one you're most comfortable with.
But I mean, is there a style that prevails over anything else
I think so.
in a
Let
hunting
me
scenario?
dive into this rabbit hole real quick
Okay.
because I did switch to a thumb release.
You've
for a while.
actually shot some stuff with it, haven't you?
I
You got an
killed my
elk, didn't
bull
you?
with
Yeah.
my thumb release.
Yeah.
So I switched to a thumb release because everybody was telling me that it's more accurate than an index release. You can't shoot it. You can't shoot an index release as accurately as you can a thumb release.
Yep.
And I probably have a majorly unpopular opinion, and that's fine. But I don't. I think that is. I think that's false. It is for me because the one thing that I heard a lot of people say is that you can it's a lot easier to anchor and a lot easier to find your anchor point. You know, and if you're anchoring properly, and just for everybody listening, I shoot my bow a lot, okay, like a ton. So I can shoot pretty decent for the most part.
I'm his brother. I'll attest. Most of the time, I would say that brothers would say they're really bad. Unfortunately, he's really good.
He shoots his bow a lot. I give him that.
He is a really good shot.
As far as anyone in the family, you probably shoot.
And I'll probably
double more than me, but maybe I don't know if it's double more than you because you shoot quite a bit too.
But anyway, and then I get really I go down rabbit holes on gear and go way too in depth. Anyway, so everybody's telling me that the thumb release is better and and that it's easier to anchor, along your jawline between your index and your middle finger. I found that was completely false for me. I had to, and I shot thousands and thousands and thousands of arrows, and I had a very hard time finding my anchor point consistently, quickly, and easy. And then it got worse when I would wear gloves, and I like to be able to wear gloves when I'm shooting.
When you have gloves on, you can't feel
when
you're actually anchoring on your face.
The other thing that I found is if you're going to activate a thumb release properly, you're placing your thumb on there, and then you're continuing to pull just like a back tension or a tension release, and you pull through that shot. The other problem that I found is your thumb is not very sensitive. At least maybe I have nerve problems, but my thumb is not very sensitive, and so what would happen is
you have nerve problems. You get on my nerves.
Yeah, well that could be wow. Hit the little thing, ding ding. Anyways, when you wrap your thumb around there, is what I would find is sometimes I would wrap my thumb around there and I would pull, and that sucker would go immediately, right away. Then other times I would wrap my thumb on there and it would take forever. And is what that did to my sight pictures, it would get my pin moving all over the place and would cause major inconsistencies. And then I'd have other times where I would shoot lights out. Like I'd hold it on there and it would be very consistent. The biggest problems I had was it was day to day that it would change as far as or it would take a few shots to get that dialed in. And then the other thing I hated about it was I used a wrist strap because I was afraid I was going to lose it, and there was no good way to secure it to your wrist. Like I was shoving it in the belt buckle when I was elk hunting, and if I needed it really quick, it was going to be a fumble fest. So those were some things and then the other thing is I honestly feel like it's way easier to mess up a thumb release than it is an index release because you have, if your fingers aren't placed exactly the same every time, you're now using 3 fingers and a thumb, or 2 fingers and a thumb, opposed to just a strap and 1 finger. So now you can go too much on your fingers, you can go not enough, and then the other thing is the angle of how you put it against your face. If you go too far down, if you go right next to your face, it will move where you hit. So in my opinion, there's a lot of elements that a handheld release adds that you don't have with an index release. And then is what I actually found for me was the opposite of what most people find. Everybody says that, a trigger finger, you're going to induce target panic at some point. I don't think that that's necessarily true if you use one that has weight on it and has tension.
Well, that comes down to setting your knowing how to set your trigger.
Right. Well, and the problem
is flat out mental capability.
I think it's the mental aspect because the problem that I had
capability is low in that aspect.
With the thumb release is that after not knowing exactly when it would go, it would start to induce panic. Because I had that pin on there and I didn't know when it was going to go because sometimes it was right away, other times it took forever.
Yeah.
And so then I would have to control myself opposed to being able to just hold it there and squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. So, and then I tried a hinge release for a few weeks, maybe even a few months. And the thing I hated about that one is there was so much rotation in it for me. So
but can't you adjust that with a lot of them?
I tried. I had that one as hot as it would go, and it was still a lot, in my opinion. The only thing that I would really, really like to try, that stand one that is just nothing but tension and just pulling, that I think I could probably shoot really, really well with. So that's my take. And so then I went back. So I killed an elk with it, and then I killed my buck last year, a 170-inch deer with it. So I killed my biggest bull and a 170-some-inch deer with a thumb release. And I think that I might have, part of the reason I might have hit that deer high is I think that it might have gone off before I was ready. So, and then I went back to an index release, and think that I shoot just as well, if not better. So that's my huge rabbit hole that I went into on handheld releases.
I've shot a lot of them as far as how long I've shot a lot of them. Everybody I've talked to about like a hinge, you need to shoot it for 2-3 months before you really say screw this until your body gets used to it. Your thumb release, I find it is one area you can find a lot of educational videos on YouTube about that is not helpful in the fact of everybody shoots them differently. Because it used to be, it's supposed to be somewhat like a stepping stone into like a hinge. So you can get used to it and start learning the motions of flexing your back or squeezing your back or learning how it's supposed to rotate and things in order to have a little more control over it before you go to a hinge. And now there's people that'll tell you, like Levi Morgan I've seen a lot about, he shoots them by just squeezing his thumb. He doesn't rotate them. And so that's completely different as opposed to what it used to be. And then you'll talk to somebody like you that rotates, or were you a back flexor or just rotating your hand?
I did both, and then I ended up with rotating my hand, but having the trigger pretty hot.
Yeah.
And I hate rotation. I hate it.
Well, see, yep, that's my issue is that does not matter how long I'll sit there. Granted, again, the release could play a huge factor in it, but squeezing and squeezing and squeezing your back is fine, but at the same time, I don't like that as much because when I'm at full draw and if I'm squeezing with my back, you have to squeeze some of that. Your release arm is going to be pulling backwards towards your back as opposed to straight away from you. So when you start to pull that, then you're torquing your bow more across your face. You have more face pressure. I've found if you're squeezing well, unless you can somehow control where your hand stays right there and rotates somewhat when you squeeze. But then if you go into like I've heard guys that rotate with just their pinky or they let loose on their index finger a little bit, and that's what sets it off. And I've never been able to that's I guess my point with the educational videos and stuff that I watch. I don't know I have no idea what to do with that.
Let me ask this question because I think we're going to have a lot of viewers that listen and go, oh my gosh, you guys are all stupid because I can shoot this and shoot that. But I think we're going to have a majority of listeners that are going to go, that sounds confusing as all get out to me.
That's because you don't shoot them.
That's exactly where I'm going. I don't have a problem with admitting because every bit of that sounds like I've got to be able to hold that pin more solid for a more amount of time.
But that's not necessarily true.
Well, hold on, because I'm not a.
He couldn't be quiet during it.
I'm not a. What am I trying to say?
A
trigger puncher. When I talk about someone who punches the trigger, what he used to do is finger is not on the trigger and kapow, we're coming over and grabbing it. But I will say that I have always shot my bow by when I get the pin on what I want to do, I squeeze. That's how I shoot my bow. And because I have never been able to hold my pins on a target for a length of time, meaning like get the 20-yard pin on a dime and be able to hold it there as I'm going through squeezing. I've never been able to do that.
Well, nobody can do that. I mean, you can.
I would disagree. Nobody can do that for an extended period of time.
There's always going to be a little bit of movement.
Right.
But you should be able to
hold it close.
Yeah. And that's where you have to trust in the squeezing that you should be more focused on where you're going to hit than thinking about anything else, and you should just be squeezing that trigger. But I would tell you,
I focus more on the release than I do focused on what I'm trying to hit.
You see, I think
that's why you miss all kinds of stuff.
I think that because you're still trying to kind of break your habit.
I'm talking about with the thumb release.
Oh, why?
Like everything is thinking about rotating or squeezing or anything.
But that's just because it hadn't gotten to second nature yet. I think that whatever one, I've seen a lot of. You can't tell me that a thumb release fixes target panic because I've seen a ton of people that punch the crap out of a thumb release as well. And I think it's worse. If you're going to punch a release, you're better off punching an index release than you are a thumb release because they'll do this stuff where they're winding up with their thumb and and I think it's just as bad, if not worse, than an index release. However, I think if you can shoot, if you are good enough to shoot a hinge release or a back tension release and hunt with it, I think that's the best release you can hunt with.
How come?
Because it forces you to take your time and execute the shot the way that it needs to be. You can't punch the trigger.
It's a good, clean release.
You have to do everything properly.
Gotcha.
Now you could.
In the event that you don't have it timed in your head.
What do you mean?
Like a lot of guys, if they shoot them long enough, I can tell you how many times I've talked to somebody who knows how far they can rotate before it goes off. Then all that is rotate to that point and wait. Then when you're there, rotate the rest of the way.
It's still harder to do than to just punch a trigger, though.
Yeah.
I think, and then a thumb release, I think for some people, they may be opposite of me. It may be way easier for them to find their anchor and way easier for them to, they don't have any hand rotation and they're able to shoot that way better. So I think if that is for them, then they should shoot that one.
I think whichever one that you start with is probably the one you're going to feel most comfortable with. But anyhow, so just to all you folks out there that are still shooting the index finger, me too.
I do think if you're going to shoot an index release, though, you should take the time to get a good one.
Yes.
Spend a little bit more money, get a good index release, one that allows you
so
to.
let's talk.
That's my suggestion on all of them.
Okay, so there's different kinds of index releases. There's calipers, there's hooks. I don't even know all the references to all of them. But
my opinion is a smallest hook you can get.
I agree. The caliper I don't trust. I've had them go
The dual calipers.
where both
The
jaws, where they when you squeeze the trigger, they both open. The string's in the middle. It's not. I don't have a problem with it going off as much as I had problems with it going off before. If you have the tension set just a little bit too light, when you come to full draw, boom, it slips through. Now you can adjust that.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the technical aspects and how all those work, functionality wise, but just from my experience, it seems like your hook ones are the smoothest. But I would say that you want to be able to make sure you have a travel adjustment and a tension adjustment. Those are the two things I think you need to have, and to try and minimize have the least amount of travel possible, and then have at least enough tension on there that you can't just stick your finger on it and it goes off. Try to make it where you have to squeeze it a little bit.
Well, the other thing is I think people need to understand how to set. I mean, a index finger release, I can tell you that is probably there's two major problems with them. One is people punching them. Number two is people setting them, and they're too long.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever seen one that someone had too short. Always
you almost
too
can't
long.
do it too short.
Yeah, but it's always too long. And I mean, what we mean by that is if you're having to lay your finger on there flat to get to the trigger, it's too far. It's too long.
So that's another thing about index fingers. I will never shoot one that is a solid connection from your wrist strap to the actual release part.
You want it to twist.
No, I'm talking about like they'll have a bolt or any form of rod that is connecting the two, and you can adjust some of them a little bit or whatever. Like my Carter it's a strap, and I won't shoot anything else as far as an index goes, solely for the fact a lot of those you can't adjust enough anyways to get them short enough to where they're sitting properly. And they're stiff. I hate how stiff they are like that.
Which, when they say properly, you should have that trigger between not on the end of your finger,
there's three sections.
Between
what is that line called? Nick, you need to look that up for us. What is the technical term for the first line on your finger?
Well, everybody should have the same, because unless you have weird joints. But there's three sections in your index finger. The middle one is where you're wanting.
Right at the beginning of the middle one.
Right in the middle of it, and then
at a minimum, at least in the same exact spot every time. But like when you get to the tip of your finger, you can't control.
No, because then you're pushing down on the release,
and you're reaching for it and everything else.
Yeah, and I've seen people even reach around the side. This is the trigger, and they got their finger like this on it and pulling it.
I haven't seen that.
And but this is the one that I see most of the time. If that's the trigger, that's their finger. It's barely getting there, and then they're pulling. Well, they're also pulling down on it and getting a lot of pressure, as opposed to being over here, and you just pull straight back.
Yep. And I think when you set your tension, you're on my.
Sorry.
You should you want to set that tension where you're able to hold that pin in there. You don't have to hold it forever, but where you have to be holding that pin on the target for at least a second or so and be squeezing and it breaks. If you have to hold it so long that it doesn't go off and you come outside of the target, then it's too heavy.
Too tight. Yep.
But that's how you should set it, is based on how your pin appears.
Yeah, and be careful setting it, because I've done it, and I don't know if you guys have or not, but when you start loosening it, you loosen it too far, then you're going to start to draw, and kapow, it's going to go off, and it's going to punch you right in the face.
You have to do that a
lot.
lot, yeah.
You'll only do that once.
Only move it a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're all in the boat of hunting. We're using an index finger release. Warren has shot some stuff with a thumb release.
I'm hunting with an index finger release. Just because I just believe that it's set up for, because we did a demo. We went back and looked at some of our video one time, and the average that we had, I think we looked at like 10 different ones, and it was like 7 seconds. And there were several that were in that were 4. 3 to 4 to 5 seconds that we were from the time that you could hear the person come to full draw, they got their pin on the animal and they squeeze the trigger. And so I just wonder what happens if it takes that 4-second shot 6 seconds. Animal moves or something like that.
But that just comes down to the amount of how much you practice. Like Brett shoots really impressive with his hinge release, or I guess
was he hunting with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or did he? He has 3 different releases. 2 of them are the same. One's the other one.
He had the thumb release and a hinge release. He had his thumb on there, and then he had his hinge release in his pocket.
Yeah. But I went out there and shot with him after it, and he was showing me. I was like, how in the heck could you hunt with that if you don't know how long it's going to take you to do it? And he showed me like how long it's taken him to be that comfortable with it, and he can set it off pretty much when he needs it to properly still. So he hunts with it, no issue. And he's very accurate with it. But that comes back down to whatever you're most comfortable with, that's what you should hunt with.
And practice with it and get to where it is second nature.
Yep.
And then whether it's a hinge, whether it's a back tension, whether it's a thumb, whether it's a index finger.
I need to try that release from Stan because I might use that for turkeys. That might help me make good shots.
I think the turkeys are just fine. You use whatever. They don't care.
Nick, shut up. I'm your coach. Okay?
Yeah, you can't talk. You have no room to talk yet.
Yeah, kneecap too.
Yeah, no kidding. Anyway, so what's the next one? Sights, I'd say, is the next biggest. I would say definitely sights is, if not bigger than releases, in my opinion. But that's probably because I get more of the controversial side with what I shoot.
Well, because where I'm going to stand.
You're going 5-pin.
5-pin. Well, and I don't even need all 5. Typically, I mean, they're there for an emergency. I need 3 pins on a 70-pound setup, which now that my shoulder's really jacked up, maybe I'm going to need all 5 pins just to get out to 20 yards. I don't know.
What do you shoot? What is your preference?
3-pin slider.
So what he means by that would be 2 set pins, and the 3rd pin would be your 40-yard pin when you're set. But then your 3rd pin is also your floater. So like if you wanted to use or dial it like a 1 pin and shoot 100, that you're using your 3rd pin.
But now, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't I know Bears is the whole bracket moves.
Yeah.
So it adjusts. See, I wish they would make a 3-pin that just the 3rd pin moved.
How are you supposed to do that?
I don't know. I'm not an engineer.
The 2 are considered your set pins because you don't use them besides for 20 and 30.
Right.
So as long as you don't forget to dial it back up to the top, you have 20, 30, and 40 always. And then you can
probably wouldn't get enough adjustment out of that either.
Let's go back to 5, 1, 3, 6, 9, 12.
7s are popular.
7, but all that is distance. When you get to 7 pins, and then I feel like that people that are shooting single pins are the people that are looking to shoot a long ways.
No, that's not why I got a single pin. But I can't shoot I can't say anything on a 3-pin yet because they just came out with it for left-handed. So I'm trying it because that, in my opinion, is the best idea. But I'll shoot at 1 pin every day of the week, even though I missed a deer this year because of it, because I can't shoot a 5-pin accurately. My pin gap is too tight. There's too much going on. My eyes aren't that great in the first place. So when they're that close together, a lot of them start to blur together. And so I can't pick a specific or use a specific pin very well to drop it or put it in right in a dot. So having 1 pin is way less for me to think about and use, and I don't blur anything.
Okay, so
with 1 pin.
That makes sense. What is it why you don't like 5 pins?
I don't mind 5 pins. I've shot them a lot, but I would prefer to have less pins, so 20, 30, 40. And then I also like to have the ability to roll it out to practice if I want 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 yards. And the other thing I think is if I'm ever in a hunting situation where for whatever reason, maybe I've already hit an elk once or something, and I need to put another arrow in him. If I need to go past 40, then in my opinion, I should have the time to be able to roll my sight to whatever range. Especially now with the digital React, it's so
quick.
It's so quick, yeah, that I shouldn't have any issue.
So, in mine's exact opposite on the 5-pin situation. I like knowing that they're all fixed right there, because if I get an animal that comes in and it comes to 20 yards, I come to full draw and he runs 16 yards, and now he's at 36 yards. I don't have to adjust anything. I just move to split my 40 and my 30 and 40, or put my 40 low.
If he runs that far in the first place, I'm probably gonna have to let down anyways, for my own sake. If he runs a couple yards, it's not a big deal. But if he's running 15, 20 yards, that's a long ways to have to move your bow around from where I originally drew, and be able to hold there comfortably and be able to make a good shot. I could probably do it, but I wouldn't be all that comfortable if he's running that far anyways. So I'm already out on that.
Well,
if he runs 5, 10 yards, not a big deal.
The other one is they come closer. I mean, and so my whole issue is where you said that, why you don't like the 5-pin is you can't see it as well, and a couple other reasons I guess you had there. But mine is my main reason why I'm leery of adjustable pins is because at least all the ones I've shot so far move the whole thing. And when you move the whole thing, if you forget to put it back, you're going to be off. You're going to be off considerably, especially if you're shooting 10-yard increments in your practice deal. So if you have 20, 30, 40 set, and then you want to shoot 50, you go dial your sight, moves it down to 50, and if you forget to put it back, you're going to shoot way high at 20 yards the next time.
Yeah, but I think the React may have fixed that, the digital one. Because if you turn your sight on, that huge display screen.
Yeah, that tells you.
It's going to be saying 48 or whatever,
Yeah.
As long as you have it turned on.
But what you're saying is you should be shooting a 3-pin, because you just would never need to adjust it.
Right.
20, 30, 40.
That's probably correct. I have a 50 and 60. I mean, a 40 and 50. No, 50 and 60. And I don't know, other than practice, I've never used them.
What I would be interested to see is how many guys now have to go to a 3-pin that have hopped on this super heavy arrow train, because unless they are to the yard, they can't do what you're doing anymore, where they set their sight at 25.
Oh, that's why I was just talking to that guy this weekend. I said there's combining a super heavy arrow with a 1-pin is just asking for a lot of trouble.
Because you're going to have to be to the yard.
I don't want to go down that one, because that's a podcast of its own to talk about arrow weight.
We already did that one.
Oh, we did. I was going to say, I remember that was like a big or I know we've had that argument many, many times.
Yeah, no, but mixing those together, I don't care if you shoot a heavy arrow or not, whatever your preference is, but you put something like that with a 1-pin in a hunting situation. The other thing in a hunting situation for me is I can set it at 30 yards, and I can shoot 20 yards with that pin, and I can shoot 40 yards with that pin accurately. So it's not a huge difference. But if I were to shoot a really, really heavy arrow, I'd have to dial dang near to the yardage.
Yep.
Maybe
there's a
maybe
lot
is
less
what they're
room
saying
for
is
compensation.
That they're not having to shoot that far. That like they're like us, and the average shot distance they have is 20 yards. And they figure if they need to shoot 25, that they can roll it out to 25, or they know they got to hold it on his back.
Maybe.
Or they're expecting
I'm not
drop
anticipating with a 1-pin.
whitetail.
I'm not anticipating shooting far either way. I set it at 30 or under, depending on where my stand is and where my chances of a deer coming in are at. So, I
think most people are shooting a 1-pin, though, for one of two reasons. Either one, they can't see that very well. Like, too many pins, it's hard for them to see. Or two, they do want to shoot a long distance.
I will say I do enjoy having a long distance for my targets and stuff. Yeah. I like being able to walk out there and shoot whatever.
So what about a sight picture? I think I know all of us are shooting a fiber optic, but they make some that are wire. And have you guys shot any of those or no? It's been years since I've shot one. But
sight picture and fiber optic is not the same thing.
Well, I don't know. What else do you call that other than your sight pin? But it's not a pin, it's a wire.
I don't think anybody has a wire.
Yeah.
Anymore. They're out of the thing.
I'm pretty sure they're all fiber optics.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
There's some that have a wire that goes through, like that shows you a line to make sure.
Right, just to line up your pin, make sure your pins are aligned.
Yeah.
Because they have a deal to
like QA
adjust
or
pins.
it has a QAD.
No, Spot
Spot
Hog.
Hog, I think, is one of them that has them.
QAD has that 7-pin one though. Has it too?
Does QAD even have sights?
Or no, sorry, IQ or that's what. That's
okay.
Yeah, IQ. Yeah, the green. Yeah, IQ. That's what it is.
Yeah,
They
I
have a
don't know.
wire that goes through it too. What is the benefit of that?
Just
Kinda
to,
like-
I think it would just let you know if any of your pins have moved left or right.
Oh,
Like I will say though, I like on my 3-pin, I like how my third one comes up from the bottom because I feel like it lines me up with the shoulder faster.
how in the world would your pins go left or right though?
Well, used
They're
to
not
you,
supposed to.
used to
That's
they
the
were
whole thing.
adjustable. Seriously,
I know. I've shot adjustable pins.
no, from left and right they were adjustable.
that doesn't make. Why would they
Not the
have
whole
that?
bracket.
I understand that.
I don't
Why would
know.
They
I
even do
Because they
that?
probably had arrows that didn't tune. They weren't paper tuned and everything else. They probably had them that were at 20, they were on, and then 30
You
they were-
might, you might have pins that look something like that.
That's not good.
I bet you it was just as accurate though. They're getting the same
Well,
thing every
I
single
guess.
time. Probably not quite as accurate, but close.
So with hunting situation again, well, I guess if you wanted to give everybody your setup so that we know, so you're at a 28 and a half,
28.5-inch draw length.
28 and a half inch draw length.
Used to be 70 pounds. I'm now shooting 12.
He's actually shooting like 60 pounds with 380 grain arrow, 400 grain.
It's
arrow.
been 412 is what because I'm still shooting. As of this
Hard
moment,
pros.
I'm still shooting same arrows that I was shooting when I
Yeah.
was shooting 70 pounds. I'm getting ready to switch.
All right, so 28 and a half inch draw length, 60 pounds, and about a 410 grain arrow with a 5-pin. Correct?
Correct, with a 100 grain tip arrow.
Any
I mean,
idea how fast that's shooting? Probably.
Right around 3 anywhere. Depends on which bow I was shooting, but it was like
At 70, it would have been, not now.
yes, at 70. I'm saying it was like 310, 305,
yeah.
somewhere in that neighborhood.
With the execute.
With the execute and with the redemption.
You're probably sitting
Yeah.
like 280 now or something like that.
I would, yeah, probably
290
maybe 290.
What is yours?
I'm shooting the execute 32 React Trio digital.
Okay, so 3-pin
Yep.
at
The-
29, 28 and a half.
28 and a half.
Okay.
And then my arrows are 424 grains, and I think they're like 298 or 301 or something like that.
Okay. Feet
And I'm
per
like
second.
70 pounds or 72 pounds. I haven't checked in a long
And your
time.
preferred is a 3-pin?
Yeah.
Mine
I
would
don't know
be-
that I'll ever change from a 3-pin slider.
I hope I like mine that much. Mine right now would be 29. Well, I guess with this execute, it's 29 and a half. 70 pounds, and I'm going to try the 3-pin. But otherwise, it would be a 1-pin and 410 grain arrows with. I haven't chronoed this one.
And
I would imagine
Those
it's.
black quantums are only 410.
Mm-hmm.
And all
Really?
that set up backwards, right? Because you're left-handed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
I don't know. I would imagine I'd probably go 410 or something like. Or it's not 410.
What were your
305,
kinetics?
310, 470,
470.
470, 480.
That'll get you a good speed bump.
Yeah, it has been a lot fat. I'd adjust. A lot of times I can take my 1-pin from bow to bow whenever I get a new one, and it's pretty dang close.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I adjusted my arrows this time.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was
I
it was
bet.
like everything looked like they were soaring. And that's only 60 grain difference. I mean, that's a
That's
good
a
amount.
lot.
That's a huge difference.
I know, but if you look at some of these guys that are shooting 500-600 grain arrows and stuff, I only went from 470 or 480 to 410, but it made a huge difference.
I can't imagine
I was
shooting a
launching
600
those
grain arrow for
I just
a
talked to
whitetail.
somebody the other day that was shooting 700.
Gosh,
I was like, you
that's
might as
gotta
well
be
just
so slow.
Just put a log on your arrow, or
Okay.
put a log on your bow. That'll
What
do
else?
it.
So we got quiver on our bows.
Yeah, but that's not really debatable. Like,
Well, just how many arrows do you pack? I mean,
3.
maybe it's.
as many will fit
actually,
in my quiver.
I carry 4.
I carry 3 plus most of the time 2 with judo points on them.
I literally carry as many fit in the quiver.
Well, that's as many as I can
Right,
carry.
but I've seen quivers where guys are packing a dozen arrows.
I would not carry that many.
Yeah.
Anyways, and I
Like
don't
5.
ever shoot like whitetail hunting. I don't keep it on. Once I get in the stand, it's off. Otherwise, unless it's like when we're walking in and something happens, I'm comfortable shooting with it on. I've practiced with it on, but I would prefer if I have the time, I'm taking my quiver off.
I do the same. Now, elk hunting, I think I've shot just about every elk with mine on.
You'd probably. I mean, that's a situation where you're always moving. So, a lot of times.
But you should practice with your quiver on.
I
and
practice with
off.
it on, and I don't even elk hunt right now. But
I practice mine on too. That's the thing I really like about the new Trophy Ridge one, that it's adjustable, because then when I have my sidebar,
you can
I can get it to where
it's weighted,
Yep.
balanced in between.
That I would say that's the last one, unless you want to do like a wrist sling. I don't. You guys.
What
use
about
wrist slings.
stabilizer
Rest.
I was gonna say it's stabilizer, but
and a rest?
yeah, you could do rests. We're all shooting dropaways, but it depends on what kind of drop. You've shot limb driven. Most of us are doing cables. What is there other kinds of dropaways? Limb driven, cable driven. What else?
That's it.
That's it, right? Or a whisker biscuit, or some form of a whisker biscuit.
Well, it's probably still the most popular rest out there.
Oh, for sure.
There's a lot of people shooting it. And as far as hunting purposes go, and as far as under 30 yards, I'd say I don't know about 40. I think even 40 in most setups, you're probably going to be okay.
In my opinion, there's really not a whole heck of a lot wrong with the whisker biscuit besides the fact that I think they're ugly. They have a lot of friction, and if I want to shoot something, if I'm trying to be the most accurate possible, out to, let's say, 60, 70, 80 yards, I'm not trusting a whisker biscuit with that.
Well,
I'll bet you a whisker biscuit's actually pretty accurate. Out to 60
I do think
even.
they're pretty accurate.
The only thing is they wear.
That would be my biggest concern, is that the more arrows you put through it, over time it's going to wear out.
Maybe if you pay attention to it. If you think they're so accurate, why don't you shoot one?
Just because I like the idea of nothing touching it, but I'd be willing to put one on my bow and just shoot it and test, because I bet you that it's
they're dang accurate.
pretty close.
I mean, like I said,
I don't like things touching my arrow as it's going through.
And I think you're losing to probably 4 or 5 feet per second.
I would definitely think you're losing some from it, depending on whose drop away you're using and how fast it gets out of the way and everything.
Do you have a big preference, limb driven or cable driven? I think limb driven is quite a bit harder to set up, isn't it?
It was a little bit harder to set up. I liked limb driven, honestly. It seemed to supposedly you're supposed to have a little bit more time that it stabilizes the arrow, keeps the arrow up before it drops. The thing I found the most I didn't like about the limb driven was that the cable was so long that I would catch it on stuff hunting,
walking.
Yeah.
A lot of extra material.
I mean, it's probably 12 to 14 inches of additional cable there, and I would catch it, on twigs and branches, and I don't like that, because if I pulled it off, then, which it's pretty tight for set up properly, but if you moved it and caught it on something, then my timing is off, and I don't like that.
All right. Stabilizers.
Well, and then there's one other one, rear sight. We all shoot with a rear sight, with a peep sight.
Peep sight, yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't. Some shoot with a kisser button.
I guess if you're really thinking about rest,
some shoot with both.
You could do like the little
flipper,
just one arm thing.
Yeah, that's typically for
traditional and stuff.
Right.
But I mean, I have seen people put it on a compound bow. I would not do that.
I think.
But as far as a peep sight, I've seen some people that do it with a kisser button, just a kisser button, and I'm still doing a peep sight either way, because I can get my same anchor same as I would with a kisser button every time, and I can now have two different areas of where I know my anchor is correct.
Correct.
As opposed to just relying on the kisser button.
What size peep are you shooting?
3/16.
You're a 1/4 inch?
I'm a 1/4.
I'm a 3/16 as well.
Right. I go bigger, and you'll find as you get older, you'll probably go bigger.
Well, for hunting, sometimes it helps as well.
It helps with
because
light.
you get a little more light. Yeah.
And you want to be...
Surprisingly, that 1/16 makes a pretty big difference.
It does make a big difference.
Yeah, I definitely prefer a 3/16.
Me too, but I think you need to just see what your housing size is on your sight.
Yep.
Because some housings are really big, other ones are really small. Your peep, if you're using a peep, will make a huge difference in your accuracy.
I agree.
Agreed. Because you can find a kisser button and not be in the same place on your string.
Well, Dad has a mole permanently from his kisser button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
No, that's just from the string, isn't it? You put the string on there?
Right there.
Yeah. Yeah, which technically speaking, you shouldn't do that, because that's a pretty decent amount of face pressure. But
gives you the same anchor point every time.
Yeah, as long as you do it exactly the same every time, right? It wouldn't matter.
Last big thing would be your stabilizers. If you're using them, if you're not using them, if you're using just a front stabilizer, back bars, side bars, and a lot of that I would have thought for a long time until the past 4 or 5 years probably, mainly because of him. And I guess if I want to give some credit to some videos I've seen, but I've always shot just a front bar, your regular stabilizer, and typically not very big either, because for hunting, you're trying to keep not
You don't wanna get
a
hung on
lot of
stuff.
big things on your bow. And then a lot of your like back bars and stuff was more so for your archery shooting or I guess your target shooting and competitions and stuff. But the moment I shoot a back bar, and do you shoot one?
I
Yeah.
do now.
At the moment I put a back bar on there and we got that thing balanced, you take that off of there and then you go to shoot again, and it's like, whew, I miss it. Every bit of it. It's all whack. So I guess I was okay with just the front bar until I tried it without. Or I guess I tried it with the back bar as well. And I won't go back.
I will say that when you put a back bar on, that movement around your pin on the target, it lessens without a doubt. Having weight on the front, and I was the same thing. I was shooting like a 6, maybe like 5 to 6, maybe 8 inches at the longest front stabilizer, and then somewhere in there we decided I was going to try and just see it. One was my shoulder was starting to bother me, and I was having a harder time holding, and it helped tremendously.
And the other thing, I think I don't torque a bow nearly as much with my back bar, for the fact of, I guess it's if you're balancing your bow correctly, you're balancing it one for the sight, to where your sight is naturally sitting, as well as where your level is. As far as like when you get to full draw, you should be able to settle and it should be level right there. Well, if you put your back bar on there and you do that and then you take it off, you'll notice that the bow probably is whack as far as balance. You'll find some bows that are nicer, and a lot of like those executes when we just got them, drawn it with nothing on it, pretty freaking close to, like, you don't have to do much to get it level. But the least amount I have to do that means my hand is all it's doing is sitting there bracing where the bow is sitting. I don't want it to have any pressure.
In my opinion, aside from good form, having a back bar set up properly and your front bar will make the biggest difference in your accuracy by itself. Like,
you've watched it help
noticeably different. Well, and I think there's two things that one, you should explain to people why it helps your shoulder, because what you're able to do is put counterweight off of the back of the bow, which helps you to not have to. Your arm doesn't want to dip. Right, because that weight is back, and so it makes it easier for you to hold the bow up and keep that pin on target. The other thing I would tell people with a back bar that helped me tremendously, and I think it might have been Chris B that was telling me this. I can't remember if it was Chris or somebody else. I think it was Chris. But, he sets his, or whoever it was, sets theirs where it's off just a little bit, meaning that it doesn't sit perfectly level. Mm-hmm. It's off just a hair, so that you have to basically, I think the way that it was explained, you're only fighting one plane when you do that, right? Because now you have to get it level. You have to do that every single time. Where if you have it perfectly balanced, then it could want to go left or right or up or down, opposed to only having to, you make a very slight adjustment, say, to the right or to the left. If that makes any sense.
I think
so it's pulling it one way or the other just a little bit.
So, like, instead of setting it perfect here,
trying to think of, because so the
like,
way I do it, it would be perfect, so that it's my hand isn't doing anything. And the theory there is
if you have it perfect like this, right, that now you have to fight this way, and this way to keep it perfect, right? Where if you set it off just a little bit, you have to induce a little bit of, I guess, I don't know if torque is the right word, but you have to induce a little bit of pressure there to get it perfect. But you're going to be more aware of that and do it every single time.
That makes any
sense. And for me, that made a difference.
It makes sense in my head, but I feel like when you help me get that thing set perfect, I don't feel as though it is set so accurately that I don't feel like it's even wanting to tip one way or another. Like, I feel like once I get to full draw, it's natural there. I'm not doing anything. Like, it's doing it's level on its own. Like, I feel like I don't have to do anything.
As long as it's comfortable for you and you're able to sit it there, I think that's all that matters.
I might have to try that one just to see what.
Again, I think whoever's going hunting, make sure that you are considering what you're hunting, and if you're going to be spotting and stalking, that kind of stuff, don't go with stuff that's too long, too much weight. You want to shoot it, and that's what's nice about Trophy Ridge is you can adjust them. I think a lot of them do that, but you can adjust the weights, both back and front. So that helps tremendously. So,
which I'll end up having my bow pretty heavy.
So
mine is pretty heavy.
But I don't
It is.
care. I'm willing to carry an extra pound
That's-
or two if I know that when I put that pin there, that arrow's going
The
there.
only reason mine's so heavy is because of Warren, though.
Why me?
Because I thought that I had it all right. Like I had like a 1 to 3 ratio. It's like 1 weight on the front, like 2 ounces, and then 3 on the back or something. And now with me and you, how we had to get it all set, and it worked now, but it's like 5 on the back. So
Yeah.
it is like a lot of weight in that one area. But when you get full draw, you don't notice it, and it doesn't do any of the wiggle woggle, the wobbling or anything. But what were you
all
gonna
right.
say?
So that we can kind of wrap it up. Your setup, arrows all the way through your bow. What are you shooting?
I have the Bear Execute 32. I like a little bit longer axle to axle. I'll be trying the 3-pin this year. I prefer a 1-pin.
Trophy Ridge React Digital.
Trophy Ridge React Digital. I'd prefer I would like to prefer the trio, but we'll see whether I keep with the trio or the single pin or the 1-pin.
What do you not think you're going to like about it?
Hold on. Let's just go through. Don't.
I'm just kind of curious.
No, I want just what are you shooting?
And then rest, I'm shooting the Micro 2 now, right? The Trophy
think
Ridge
so,
Micro
yeah.
2. And then Black Quantum label or Black Label Quantums gold tip arrows, about 410 grains, 100 grain tips. I have a 8-inch. I want to say it's 8 inches or 8-inch front stabilizer, and then a 6-inch.
Back bar.
6-inch back bar, I think. I adjust that a lot. That's why I'm struggling to know which I switch during the summer and during deer season. And then that's it, right? Oh, and then I have an index finger release, a Carter.
RX1, Quickie.
I don't know. It's whatever one you guys don't shoot. I always forget. I think you guys shoot the RX1.
I
Or you
shoot
shoot
the-
the
I
RX1. I
shoot
shoot
the
the
Quickie.
Quickie.
I shoot RX1.
Yeah, I'm the opposite of you. So I shoot the Quickie.
All right. So that's me. I'll start with arrows. I'm getting ready to switch to a 400. But I shoot the Hunter Pros.
Yep. Gold
And
tip 100 Pros.
Gold tip Hunter Pros. They're about at the 300 that I'm at right now. It's 412 grains. I've got a 100 grain tip on there. And then I shoot same thing, 8 and a 6-inch, 8 in the front, 6-inch back bar with a Micro 2 drop away rest.
You're shooting an 8-inch front bar?
Yeah.
Really?
That makes me think that I have a 10-inch front bar and an 8-inch back bar.
When did you start shooting such long bars?
It was what I had that one day when I put it on there, and it shot better, and I was like, all right, I'm going to keep this one.
Oh.
Good for you. You're
Yeah.
expanding your horizons.
Usually he's got like a 4 and a 4.
Yeah.
And then I'm shooting a 5-pin React, not digital.
We don't have the digital in the 5-pin.
So anyhow, I'm just saying I'm not shooting a digital sight. I'm still shooting the,
But you're
the
shooting
React
React Pro.
React Pro 5-pin. What else? What am I missing now? And then
Your rest. Yeah,
I
we're all
said
shooting the same rest.
yeah, the Micro 2.
Yep.
And then I do shoot with a wrist strap. I do believe that it helps me to keep my hand from grabbing the bow. So I have a wrist strap on there and a peep sight on there as well. And strings, I love the A3 strings. No work on those. So
And they don't twist.
They don't twist. They don't move. You don't have to wax them. Nothing. So anyhow, there's my setup.
I'm shooting the Execute 32, 70 pounds, gold tip air strikes, I think 300 spine, which I've really liked those arrows so far. The React Trio Digital, the Micro 2 rest. I think I have an 8 and a 6-inch. I think 8-inch front bar and a 6-inch back bar. And then 3/16 peep. And I think that's all of it.
I guess we're all shooting
And then
we're
I'm
all
shooting
shooting
a-
A3 strings and all shooting the same Micro 2
Oh, and I
rest.
And then I'm shooting a RX1 Carter release,
and I'm
which
shooting
I'm probably going to try that.
stand.
Try that stand release soon.
Yep.
So, and then the only other thing I would say is, even if we didn't work with Trophy Ridge, I would still shoot a React sight, whether it be the digital or the React Pro, because the confidence it gives me if I'm on a hunt and need to adjust something, it's the only sight that gives you the capability to move so quickly or to get sighted in so quickly.
3 arrows. Like
Yeah.
it comes
Well, I
down to
mean,
it,
like
you can
even
do-
if opposed, I don't have to go and do 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. I know that I can do 2 ranges and be good. And so if I have something go wrong,
and
I
as
can
long
sight
as
it
the
in
sight
right
is
away.
mounted on the bow, you don't need a tool.
Yeah.
That's the greatest thing is that you just dial everything where you want to go, and it's smooth. I mean, everything moves very, very smoothly. The only thing you need a tool for is to attach it to the bow.
Yep.
Oh, and we're all shooting the new quivers. What?
I'm shooting the.
Are we shooting the Hex Light?
I think so.
Yeah, I got the. I think it's like the Versa Hex Light or something. I'd have to look again. That's terrible. But it's their brand new bracket and everything. Oh, it is slick. I think that's what you can adjust in and out and stuff, so it changes your like if you don't want to.
And those lights, they seem tacky, but they are so helpful.
Oh my gosh! If you charge it, like if it's like the new ones are rechargeable, it is better than my regular flashlight. Me and Joey walked out of the woods one night.
I can't tell you
he's
how
like,
many times I've
"Where'd you get that
hit
flashlight?"
that at the tree stand.
I was like, "It's not a flashlight, brother. It's my bow."
Yeah.
It was really cool.
All right, I think
there's a full setup for everybody.
Yeah, I think we kind of covered. I didn't think we could get it all in one podcast, but we did. So
we went a little longer.
Let us know what you're shooting.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Or if you have questions about what we are shooting or what there's some variation of that, let us know, and we'll kind of give you our thoughts or our opinion on it. That's all it is when it comes to this stuff. Is it's just an opinion, because there is a gajillion different manufacturers and bow manufacturers, and we will tell you. I mean, we love bear. I've been shooting bear forever, and I'll continue to do so. And like you heard Warren just talking about the Trophy Ridge, we're not here telling anyone that other manufacturers are bad. That's not it. We just we like these. So anyhow, appreciate you guys listening. Again, thanks for the reviews. Thanks for the all the inquiries or the comments on what we should do on the podcast. Continue to do that. And who knows, we may have your inquiry or your topic next. We'll just have to see. So again, thanks from all of us at Raised Hunting. Appreciate you.
Peace.